Hello friends, I'm Stan Copeland, the pastor of Lover's Lane United Methodist Church in Dallas, Texas. And some call me the Pickling Parson. A friend of mine gave me 2 stoles with pickling and farming themes on them. So I thought today that I'd just dress the part and welcome you to our home. The name Pickling Parson is due to a hobby of mine, which is pickling and canning. Pickling and canning is an old creative art that I witnessed firsthand growing up in East Texas. I have my great-great-grandmother, Mama Ellis's Virginia chunk sweet pickle recipe and my great-grandmother, Mama Hasey's bread and butter pickle recipe. I call my dill pickles salty dogs. So here today I have an antique pickle jar, and over here I have a crock that's full of pickles. Now crocks, they come in all sizes, and when I brine pickles in a crock, as I am these, they could be sweet or bread and butter or dills when the process is finished. And after brining, they are ready to be canned and the goodness to be enjoyed for a long time. So, a crock can be used to make good things like pickles, sauerkraut, and even corned beef. Now, you may have heard another word, crock, used in another way, and here's a definition. So, a crock is a noun, an earthen pot or a jar. The cabbage was mashed and salted, added to make sauerkraut in a large crock. So, this is a crock. Or, a crock can be silly talk, foolish belief, a poor excuse, something considered to be completely nonsense, or the North American reference to bologna. The whole business of the United Methodist Church not believing in the faith foundation of the Bible and Jesus as the Son of God is a crock. You know, I believe that most of the information that comes out under the banner of the Institute of Religion and Democracy, or the IRD, qualifies as a crock. In this day and culture that we live in of false narratives and outright lies, crocks are everywhere. The writings under the name Juicy Ecumenism or Action are perfect examples of crock-like propaganda that takes a kernel of truth or no truth at all from an extreme example and claim that it represents the United Methodist Church beliefs and the direction we are headed. And I continue to call it out until they stop with the foolishness and quest to ruin another church, our church, your church, and most importantly, God's church. What godly organization forms and communicates to ruin a church? Really? When I think of juicy regarding communication, I think of gossip, don't you? It's the stuff tabloids are made of. Therefore, I read Juicy Ecumenism as just that, a tabloid in nature and spirit. It took me a while, but I learned not to get mad, but to just consider the source. It's a crock. And the most recent example of silly talk that came out of the Action update was really just another attempt to raise money. The appeal was, will you please stand with me with a donation of $25, $50, $100, $200, or perhaps even more? But personally, I don't stand with anyone raising money in a crock. And the article I referenced is called United Methodist Bishops Turn Against Congregations. And throughout the article, there are references to sources which are more writings in Juicy Ecumenism. So it's a bit silly, don't you think, to write an article criticizing bishops while referencing your own stuff. That's a crock. And if you click on a link in the article, it sends you to a Juicy Ecumenism page and a title called UMC Choices. The background graphic about UMC Choices is a pew rack of Presbyterian hymnals. Oops. So much for attention to detail. That must have been an old photo when they were attacking the Presbyterians over the same matters they attacked the UMC for. Another writing that is just as biased and narrowly focused is Why United Methodist Tolerance of Conservatives Will Be Impossible. Most of the people in the UMC pews are traditional in beliefs, just as I am. And most UMC pastors I know are too. And they will still be when disaffiliation is a discussion of the past. Another pontification. United Methodist apportionments a high price of staying UMC. Well, let's think about this for a minute. The UMC apportionment giving, or our generosity, is what has helped grow the church globally. Apportionments helped build schools, spread healing centers throughout the world, combat malaria, address emergency needs in the midst of disasters, be about world evangelism, and even pay our bishops globally and stateside. Can you imagine God saying, "Why don't you disaffiliate so you can save money and not spread my good news throughout the world and do good in my name through the payment of your apportionments?" The UMC has advanced evangelism throughout the globe due to our generosity. The UMC Global Ministries raises money for others, not to promote church ruin causes, which is the IRD obsession. The Institute of Religion and Democracy was formed in the early 1980s with a few dogmatic Catholics partnering with some evangelical extremists to first fight communism and mainline churches that they believed to have left-leaning views. The Presbyterians, the Episcopalians, they were in the crosshairs, as was the United Methodist Church. Millions of dollars and countless hours have been poured into ruining mainline denominations, all the while saying they were about renewal. What a crock. A 30-something single man who had spent 9 years working for the CIA. He was a United Methodist layman from Virginia. He was hired to lead the United Methodist project of the IRD and target our United Methodist Church. Shortly afterward, he was put on the board of Good News, another far-right leaning so-called renewal group with a magazine megaphone. Together, the coalition that formed became more involved in corrupt political practices focused on the UMC General Conference voting and implementing neo-colonialist tactics to assure the votes from Central Conference delegates would go the right way. And all the money and energy was all about keeping the language in the Book of Discipline regarding LGBTQ persons intact and to make the language even harsher. I witnessed these actions firsthand because this used to be my tribe. I believed in the Wesleyan values we used to promote as the main thing. The agenda became more and more about passing out pagers, then cell phones, to assist in voting, and always distributing fear and false accusations just to get votes at General Conference. Money to do this was flowing, and the IRD was always right in the middle of it. And it was apparent and sad to me that the IRD and Good News had shifted their focus and practices away from renewal and toward ruin, away from evangelism and toward a homophobic agenda. Now, I remember a prominent pastor serving a large church in the South saying, "We'll always win on this gay thing as long as we have the Africans." I was pretty much done when it came to that. I didn't want any part of that racist notion. And the holiness and the good being promoted was just not there anymore. The ethics involved became more and more deplorable. And people need to know that the discipline language, that some complain about it not being upheld, is in the book due to Crock-like measures of keeping it there. The question is, will the IRD stop their ruin agenda? Now, I pray so. But for a long time, it's been about money. Peddling fear and suspicion is the game, and it sells with some. Now, I wonder if the IRD really cares about the success of the new forming Methodist expression. Is the GMC just a means to their end of ruining the UMC, as they tout they have already done with the Presbyterians and Episcopalians? Can you imagine having a job where every day you were thinking up juicy stuff to write, to hurt God's church? all to fund your ruin agenda? Personally, I wouldn't want to answer for such a ruin agenda that I cannot imagine God supporting. Wouldn't it be godly and holy and quite frankly a miracle if the IRD could say, we're changing our focus to be on the good that is happening in the larger Methodist family, 84 million strong throughout the world. That's what I'm praying for. But greed and power and evil is enticing. I believe the UMC and the GMC are God's churches. And it's apparent that God is big enough to embrace a plethora of faith expressions as God's own. Well, it's pickling season, so I'll keep videos coming and making more and more shows about real live pickling and canning, and not about the other kinds of crocks. But I'll have to talk about the bad news concerning good news next. It too is a crock. So thanks for subscribing to the Picklin' Parson YouTube channel, and I'll see you later.